Welcome, guys, to Home Buying 101. This week, I've got Hilario and Mariel Leon on the show with me. Mariel, introduce yourselves to us, please.
My name is Mariel Leon, and I'm currently a real estate agent at Caballero Realty. I have been a real estate agent for the last 5 years, and prior to that, I was a commercial property manager. And I made the transition from property management to residential because I have a passion for helping families, and I felt my time was better spent helping families get into their own homes. After our experience buying our first home and hearing our parents' experience buying their homes, I feel like there's somebody out there that needed to guide them and help them along the way.
Awesome. And Hilario, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Hilario Leon. I have been a real estate agent for about 3.5 years now. Prior to that, this was actually my office for about 5-6-ish years here with Daniel.
What made you get into real estate?
Yeah. So the goal was for Mariel to get settled in for the residential side, and as soon as we were comfortable with where she was at, I was gonna jump in, and we were gonna form the Leon team at that point, so that we could grow the business quite a bit more than what she had already established for us.
That's awesome. Husband and wife team.
Yes, we love it.
Saving the day.
Yes.
So just like every week, Mariel, we start off by talking about what the market looks like. So can you kind of tell us what the market looks like this week?
Yes, so this week we have an active listings of 14,725. That's down 283 listings from last week. And we have 570 coming soon listings. And pending, we have 9,259 listings. That's down 359 from last week. The median listing price is $469,000. The median sold price is $412,000, and days on market are currently at 81 days.
Thank you for that information. And let's go over to our lender of the week just so we can kind of see what that would look like on a monthly basis, just pricing wise with interest rates and everything.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa, Senior Loan Officer with American Pacific Mortgage. I run a team and have 20 years in the mortgage and real estate business. I wanted to provide you guys with an update on what is going on in the Phoenix real estate market. As we all know, rates have increased. They have doubled basically since December of 2021. And I know it's tough for a lot of buyers to be able to get into a home right now. A lot of them are needing co-signers or not able to qualify. So my strategy is to do a 2-1 buy down. If you have not heard of a 2-1 buy down, you need to talk to your lender or talk to me. And basically what a 2-1 buy down is allows you to have a lower payment in year 1 and year 2. And the cost to do the 2-1 buy down is all covered by the seller. So the opportunity right now is that rates are high and sellers are willing to work with you as a buyer. You can negotiate with the seller to ask for them to either pay your closing cost, or you can ask them to pay for the 2-1 buy down and pay for some of your closing costs. So there is a lot of opportunity that you could take advantage, but this may not last long because when rates do come down, and I don't have a crystal ball, we don't know when that will happen, but predictions are that rates will at some point this summer start to come down. When rates come down, all the buyers that are waiting on the sidelines who are scared to buy now or can't qualify now, all those buyers are going to come flooding into the market, and that's going to create another buyer frenzy. It's going to create a lot of competition, and who knows, we can go back into the market we were at in 2021 where buyers were paying 20, 30, 40, 50,000 over the list price on top of your down payment, on top of paying your closing costs. You were also having to give the seller 20, 30, 40, 50,000 or more, depending on the city, just to get your offer accepted. So right now there's an opportunity for you to get into a home. It's just strategizing on what that looks like for you. So for example, if you did a 2-1 buy down, we have 2 programs, FHA, and which is a government loan, and we have conventional loans. So on an FHA loan, if we were to use an example, $412,000, which is the average sales price right now in Maricopa County, that would give you a payment in year 1 of $2,534 as opposed to $3,045, which would be your payment if you didn't do the 2-1 buy down. So on the second year, your payment would be about $2,784. So it allows you to have a lower payment in year 1 and year 2. And if we jump over to conventional loan, putting 5% down, you could have a payment as low as $2,454. That's pretty close to what you would pay on a rental on a home, because we all know that rents have increased and basically have doubled, I want to say, in the last 4 to 5 years. So we want to be able to get you into a home. I have strategies that I can help with, and so I can discuss all this more in detail. We all know that rates are constantly changing, and so with that, I'd love to discuss that more in detail. And one thing I did want to know is that when rates do come down, say 12 to 18 months are the predictions, at that point we can refinance you and lower your payment and get you into a 30-year fixed loan where your payment and rate never change. So if you are interested, I'd love to discuss that more with you. The other thing I wanted to discuss is that I am very passionate about helping people build wealth through real estate. And I like to strategize with my clients on how you can buy your first home with only 3 to 5% down and live in that home for about a year or 2. You can then turn that first home into a rental, go buy your next home and put only 5% down. Live in that second home for 2 to 3 years or even 1 year, and then go buy your next home. So you can keep repeating that year after year, and you can end up retiring with a handful of properties and then live off of the rents. And these are things that they don't teach us this in high school or in college. And so this is something I'm very passionate about educating people. So if you have family, coworkers, kids, especially if you have kids that are under 30, this is very important that we teach them how they can retire at the age of 40 or 50 and live off of the rents of their rentals. So if you're interested, make sure to follow me at Home Loans with Melissa on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. Or you can call me at 602-799-9570. I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa, for that information. So this being Home Buying 101, guys, we've already kind of talked about everything up to this point, where last week we had an inspector come in and talk to us about his process of what before the client even shows up and kind of everything about the inspection on their end. So I wanted to have you guys come in and also talk about the inspection on the realtor side. So first of all, I guess, let me ask you this. So they're there about an hour, hour and a half before you guys even show up with the client. So do you guys show up before the client just to kind of get a preview from the inspector of what he's already seen, just so you can kind of prepare yourselves before you guys have the client come in, or do you guys kind of just show up at the same time as the client and kind of see everything at the same time they do?
It varies based on our schedule for the day, but usually we get there just a few minutes before, and the inspector is usually still working on their report. So we try not to bother them so that they can be done by the time the client arrives. So we are hearing the information at the same time as the client.
Sure. So of course, perfect world scenario, you walk in and it's a perfect inspection. What happens if everything's good to go? There's no repairs requested. Everything looks good. The house is pretty much pristine.
If everything looks good and the client is happy with that, then the buyer just moves on to signing off on the BINSR, which is like the buyer inspection form. And that means that they're going to continue on with the transaction. That means their 10-day inspection period ends, and they no longer can back out of the contract without penalty. So typically after that, they are locked into the contract, and then their next ability to do any negotiations really is at the appraisal.
So now the fun stuff. What happens if you guys show up and there's a couple items on there? What's the next step once you have gotten the inspection? The inspector's gone over everything with you guys.
Yeah, at that point, it's about paring down what's important to the buyer. You know, some of them want the nitty gritty little things, and sometimes that's okay. You know, the sellers are will easily say yes to some of those things. You know, but if you're comparing, like, okay, let's ask for the AC to be fixed because it's not working correctly, and we need to touch up some paint. You know, if you're throwing a bunch of those on there, we kind of talk them down from that to just ask for the major stuff, because at that point you give the seller too many items to look at, and they can just say no if they want to. So at that point we write it all up on the Binzer form and have it sent over to the seller for a response.
And then on the average, I guess, with the Binzer, does it go back and forth maybe 1 or 2 times, or is it more 3 to 4, 5 or 6 times? How many times does that Binzer usually go back and forth between the buyer and the seller where they've come into a negotiation on certain things?
Usually it only goes back and forth once. So the buyer is going to either say we accept the premises as is, and they're going to choose to continue on with the contract, or we send it back to the seller with, we've accepted the premises, but we would like you to make these repairs. And if the seller agrees to them, they'll just send it back to us saying they agree. They can also send it back to us saying that they agree to, you know, XYZ items, but not ABC items. At that point, we can either elect to cancel or to agree to what the seller has done, or we can negotiate even further and ask that the seller provide a credit to the buyer in some shape or form, or, you know, do something like that where we have to just get a little bit more creative.
And do you guys see, right now, especially in this buyer's market, do you guys see them actually making the certain repairs, or do you guys see them more saying, hey, we'll give you guys a credit for this and this and that, instead of actually making the repairs?
We've seen sellers make the repairs and agree to all of the repairs. Yeah.
Was it more common during maybe COVID that they were just saying, hey, we'll give you this credit instead of actually making the repairs?
During COVID, it was more common that they would not agree to do any repairs. So even credits were a little bit unheard of.
Okay.
Right, because during then you get offers coming in saying we're waiving inspection, so there wouldn't even be a chance to ask for any repairs.
And we talked about that with the inspectors last week.
Yeah.
It's just kind of scary to find out what's going to happen in the next couple of years with a lot of people that just waived inspection completely.
Exactly, and something we never recommend is that buyers waive their inspection. I mean, yes, we have seen buyers do that, and if a buyer decides to do that, we'll honor that decision, but we highly recommend you get an inspection. Even if you're choosing not to ask for repairs, you can still have the inspection done. At least you go into the property knowing what defects there are.
Do you guys recommend your clients to do sewer scopes?
Yes, especially if the property is of a certain age or there's lots of like trees and foliage, because we do see from experience, like with our parents' houses, that the sewer lines get affected by the roots of trees.
Okay. Yeah, and we were actually talking about that last week, where even on new builds, they told us, remember, this used to be a construction site, so they told me that on a new build they actually found a can of beer in one of the plumbing pipes, I guess.
Yeah, even on the commercial side, we had a property that the sewer line somehow got filled with cement, And as tenants moved into the building, all the sewage started backing up, and eventually it started coming out of people's toilets and whatever they had in their offices.
That's gonna be a fun experience.
Yeah.
So is there anything you guys would recommend when you're doing the inspection and talking about with vendors with your clients? What's something you guys recommend your clients while they're doing they're part of this process?
I would recommend that not only they do the inspection with an inspection company, I would also take your 10-day inspection period to make sure you have your home insurance quote, because some homes require like flood insurance, and you don't want to get out of your inspection period only to realize that now you need flood insurance and you don't know what the cost of that flood insurance will be. I would also, during that inspection period, like recommend you look at the schools if that's important to you. Look at any like sex offender registries to see who's in the neighborhood. It's not just about the structural components of the house, it's also about the neighborhood and what's surrounding the house. And that's what the inspection period is for.
Right, and remember, it's the buyer's responsibility to research all of those items.
Someone was telling me, one of the other realtors we talked to maybe about 2-3 weeks ago also mentioned that you have to also make sure that the HOA will give you permission to do certain stuff. Like let's say, for example, you have a work truck that you need to bring home every night. You have to make sure that they'll let you park that work truck, or if you want to build a certain type of pool or something, you have to also make sure the HOA lets you do a certain type of pool that you want to do before, I guess, you move in. That's kind of your due diligence of the buyer.
Yes, it is the buyer's due diligence. So that's the opportunity to call the HOA, find out what the rules and regulations are, and see if there's been any past fines or any existing ongoing issues with the HOA and the property.
And also title kind of does that for you on the fine side, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Our HOA is pretty receptive to people, buyers calling them and just kind of figuring stuff out, because sometimes I've called some HOA companies and they need to ask for them.
That's a hit or miss. Even we can't get through to them sometimes. So you have to be very, I don't want to say aggressive, but you have to be diligent in contacting them. You can't just leave them a message and wait for them to call you. I usually try and find multiple numbers, emails, and hit them all at once to see if I get anything back.
And then what about properties that just don't even have HOAs?
Properties that don't have HOAs, you'd be subject to the local municipality's zoning laws and any ordinances. So if you were planning to build something on the property or to have animals, you would want to check with that local zoning department or with a construction department to see if your property is eligible to go from a 1-story to a 2-story, or if you can have cattle, or if you can have chickens. Yeah, because you can't have chickens just anywhere.
Darn. And then you were also talking about flood. When does your client usually figure out or find out that the house they're looking at has flood? Do you guys usually disclose that before you guys even go under contract, or?
We do look to make sure whether or not that property is in a flood zone. As you know, for even if a little corner or a little piece of the property, not even where the house is built, that even just touches the flood zone, then it's required to have flood insurance.
And I'll tell you guys this, I'll tell this to our audiences, we have to be careful with flood zones. We had a property which 2% of the land was sitting on a flood zone, and their premium went from $1,000 to $16,000 for the year for the flood, just because we had calculated as one flood area, and they turned around and said, no, it's going to be this type of flood area, and we're jumping that premium from $1,000 to $16,000. Wow.
Did you find that out during the inspection period?
No, this was after we already had bound the policy and the consumers had already moved in about it.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
But it's just one of those things that you just don't know, especially with
until it's submitted and everything.
So that's another thing about inspections and inspection companies is that it's a snapshot in time. That doesn't mean that when you move into the house, something won't happen, there's still that possibility that something will happen in the house, even if that system was deemed to be fine just a few weeks ago when you did the inspection, because the house is a living house. It's constantly changing, it's affected by the weather, it's affected by the elements. So having an inspection doesn't mean that you're never going to run into an issue with the system that powers the house.
One thing we did talk about last week, and I kind of talked to the inspectors after we got off the air last week, is it doesn't rain enough out here. Where I'll give you guys 2 examples. Like, I had a client who bought a house, and 6 months later, all of his windows were leaking. Water was leaking in all of his windows. But it's not like the inspector goes and pours water on your roof or pours water on your windows just to see if everything's sealed correctly. And then back in the day, like 2006, I'm originally from El Paso, so our neighbors bought the house, and two days after they bought it, they moved in. El Paso got hit by a storm that hadn't happened in about 100 years, and their whole roof on their garage caved in because there was just so much rain. But that wasn't expected to happen in that time period where that much rain fell down too. So, like you said, it's just a snapshot of what the house looks like at that time period. You don't know what could happen with the elements or weather when it comes to your house.
Right, the inspectors can only review so much. They'll go in the attic, they'll look to see if there were any previous leaks, but unless it's raining, they can't tell you if it's an active leak. Luckily enough, on our last inspection that we had for a property that just recently closed, it was raining the day of the inspection. So,
Was there any leaks that day?
no, it was a new build.
Okay.
There were some issues that they did find out. The downspouts, it was a flat roof, so there's a downspout on the side, and it was windy that day and rain coming down, and they were able to see that one of the downspouts was actually sending water towards the main, the electrical main.
Okay.
So yeah, in that situation, we were able to ask for them to make some corrections and be able to avoid it happening again.
Was the water sitting on the roof, or was it actually draining correctly? 'Cause that's another thing that we've seen a lot with these flat roofs here in Phoenix, especially, is that water just sits on the roof and it can cause some more damage.
No, it was draining correctly. It's just wind was pushing water into the electrical box there.
What's the most interesting you guys have seen on an inspection so far?
I think for me, it was this condo we did, and we had walked through the property like twice. And then when we did the walkthrough with the inspector told us that he actually found a safe,
Oh yes.
an old safe in underneath the kitchen cabinet. So we were able to get it open, but there was nothing in there.
I thought you were telling me there was like 3 bricks of gold in there. The seller decided to give you one.
I wish.
What about you, Lario? Any interesting?
That would have to be it. I mean, I was a part of that one, so yeah.
So is there any advice you want to give the consumers on home inspection? Just be ready to see this, or just have an open mind, or is there anything, I guess, in general you would like to tell our consumers about home inspection when it comes to home inspection on you guys, I guess?
I would say always get a home inspection. They are optional, but get one anyway, and know that they're just a snapshot in time. And you can choose to do add-ons like termite inspections, sewer scopes, and things like that. And if you have any, hesitation in the report or want anything further done, involve trades to go out there and do further inspections. So even though the inspection company will do like test the splits on your AC, you might want to have an AC technician go out and actually test the AC and give you further details. So always, if you feel like you want more information, go that extra step. It is going to cost you another service fee from that technician, but it is worth it.
That's awesome. So if someone wants to get a hold of you guys to start the process or have any questions, where can they reach out to you guys?
They can reach out to me at 602-345-1346, or they can find me on social media on Instagram at mariel.jilario palafolks.leon.realtor, or they can contact Jay at
480-363-0680.
Okay, awesome. So, of course, thank you guys for being on the show. If you guys have any insurance questions or any other questions you guys want me to ask Mariel Leon Jilario about anything that we talked about today or any additional questions, of course, reach out to us on our socials. Thank you guys for being on the show today.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.